Hey, what's up? Jumping in for a quick commentary, a couple points of view, and some congratulatory comments for Jerrod Carmichael's brand new HBO comedy, almost like a documentary, almost like a just words in a club and communication at its finest. Rathaniel is the name of the special. Um, I feel very intrigued by it. I really enjoyed the way it was done. It spoke to me in many ways. I think it spoke to lots of people, but we have a 24-hour news cycle, it seems like, and sometimes things go un appreciated. And what he did, sure, if you're younger and you're coming into the world and you think, oh wow, it's always been, you know, accepting all across the board for the most part, in the United States here. um, it wasn't, I don't know the difference in age between Gerard and myself, but let's say 35 to 42, that age bracket, we all grew up in the 90s. I could remember going to high school and there was like one or two gay guys. That's it. And it wasn't a walk in the park for them. It was very taking a lot of shit, being almost like in on the joke before the joke could hit them. And it was definitely what you never wanted to be. Where I'm gonna play the Rathaniel trailer in a second, but I just kind of want to talk about where I arrived with it in terms of like why I wanted to watch it and why it was so intriguing to me is just because never in my mind, not that it's anyone's decision to be looking out for stuff like this, but I never like looked or or clocked Gerard as being a gay comedian. I never saw that. But there is this other thing where you start to look once the announcement was made and I saw the special, the HBO Rathaniel special, followed by him hosting SNL the next day or whatever, which was fantastic. What an experience! What a week, right? Like you go through so much interpersonally, whether it's as bad as you think it is or not, but then you get to pay it off with that special hitting the HBO airwaves, and you let it off your chest. And then you get to go do SNL and that pure, warm moment when it's over and the saxophone's playing and you're there in New York City. I mean, really, it's a dream of mine also to host on SNL one day. But going to the special and going to the context of it being his coming out comedy special, no one really ever thought or assumed or questioned anything within his sexuality. It just never really came up. And I think that's a good thing. And of course, there will be a moment that everyone would hope that no one has to come out. More so, you just talk to people and you get their information. But when I look back at his career, not necessarily saying that you can see certain things, but you can feel a limitation. You could feel, a glass ceiling, so to speak. And I know it from my own career because I always had that challenge too. I entered radio in around 2002. Um, and what ends up happening, much like a comedian, I assume, is you become very good at extracting stuff and bringing it out there and hitting that vulnerability, making the room laugh. I mean, a comedian is, of course, a very hard skill set, way, way tougher than a radio personality, but nonetheless, I did do radio for many years. And with that, you really almost learn how to compartmentalize. You learn how to sell what you want to sell. You learn how to make fun of what you want to make fun of. Look at your busted nose, and then you make a joke out of it. Oh, when I grew up, everyone thought my nose was funny. Da 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 da. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so we did this. Da 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 da. So you get used to being vulnerable. You get used to being self-deprecating, but it's on your dime. And I think as the announcement was happening, again, I never necessarily questioned or thought, obviously he had his TV show, I think it was on NBC, the Carmichael show. I just never thought nothing of it. But the moment, the nanosecond that it was announced, I was like, oh yeah, he's family. I get it. I get it. I get it. I get it. When I was on my quest within radio, I got into radio at 2002. It turned into this space of if I wanted to get rewarded, well, you're working in music, radio, sometimes hip hop industry music. And well, what's on the radio? On the radio, they're not talking about rent. They're usually talking about booty, 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 rocking everywhere. They're not talking about a man's broad shoulders. And so you end up trying to build your career to match what's working. The affirmations, the acceptance, the growth, the adulation, the pull up of your career usually is following the lowest common denominator, sometimes within that bad music. And I imagine comedy isn't too far away from that. And so again, Jerrod did this for himself. It has nothing to do with me. But as somebody, I don't know his age. He might be a little bit older. As far as when he came out, I came out around 28, 29, which I thought I was already a fossil at that time. But when I did, I moved to New York City, had the best 7 years of my life, collectively 7 years. I moved in, then moved back to, again. And we'll probably be back again to go see where Gerard's at. No, I'm kidding. Um, no, but what I'm saying is, um, I have a connection with seeing it. And again, he probably already dealt with it so much interpersonally that this was just the funny way to say it for the comedy special, but it was still so relatable for me. And it's like, who am I? I'm a nobody. But at the same token, like, I know those years, and maybe there's some similarities. Maybe I'd like to interview him at one point, because there might be those similarities where he had to give a show to NBC. Most shows are geared towards, if it's not an office what do you call it? Work comedy, it's usually some type of dating. Every show is, How I Met Your Mother, Friends is about, dating. Everything is about dating, 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 dating. And I didn't watch too much of the Carmichael show to know exactly where he stood with that. And I also wouldn't call him fake if at that time he was, had girlfriends or whatever, be it on the show or be it in real life, because it is a struggle. It is a journey to finally overcome and be very comfortable with it. But baby, when we're here, we're here. When we are here, when we are finally feeling comfortable with everything, it's good. Um, and so I think that I related to, like, a comic will have an act. And to some degree, what we did in radio, we always had our branded bits of who you were on the air. And so I don't know, I always felt so ugly inside because I was only giving this much. But then in the reality, I would have loved to give more. And so what made me think Rathaniel was such a great special is the way that he took it right to the middle of the special, and he listed all of these other things which allow us in life sometimes to compartmentalize and lie about certain things. And then when those are removed, well, who are you? Like, you really have to look at it when it's just you. Anyways, let's take a look at the special right now, and then we can kind of talk from there, a couple other thoughts. But that's just what I wanted to say as far as why it wasn't just for me a coming out comedy special. For me, it was the way it was done. It was the fact that he said in the special, I'd be it not be here than to be this. And the other thing is balancing that. In his case, you are a household name, or a comic of a high stature, but what is that switch up going to be when you've already been branded as this or that, and what that change is like. So I watched it. It was even produced very well. It had a certain texture, a certain grit to it. Well, let's take a look at the special. And this is Jerrod Carmichael, Rathaniel. This is the teaser.
Been trying to be very honest because my whole life was shrouded in secrets, and figured the only route I haven't tried was the truth. So I'm saying everything. Here's everything. Feel okay. Very thankful for tonight.
Let me see. So you could just feel it. You could feel the texture of it. And I encourage you right now, forget my little channel, go to HBO Max and watch it. See what you think about it. I think it's relatable to many different people. For me, I connected to it just in the sense of how you balance your on-camera persona or your comic persona, and how that lets things get away from you. In the special, he didn't mention much of that you start to get um confined in your work, but he talked more about how lies that were told to him and he had to absorb them, how that almost gave him permission to balance the lies in his head. And it's just so discouraging. I always feel like I'm like coming out to me is like the greatest of things. Like it's like my favorite thing. However, when you're on the other side of that, society will have ripped you to shreds, and even situation spaces still ain't fucking with it, right? But that no longer matters. I mean, it matters because it matters, but it doesn't matter to you because you've already unlocked the key. You've already really whatever was fed to you in life, you were able to shatter it all. So you don't just shatter your own situation, you start to look at everything. You start to look at like, oh, well, I didn't realize, women, some of the, not some, but the things that they have went through in the past. It's odd to me to think women could not vote. That is a real thing. So when you break open the can of worms for your own self, you see and you empathize for for so many different things. Anyways, I did this episode just because too many people who are on the YouTube and podcast space, they literally only do episodes on whatever's best for the algorithm. And if I hear another daggone, no offense, Kim Kardashian story, no. And whereas you have somebody who has had a name in the business for so long, he's had tons of specials on HBO already, the NBC show, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And a special that kind of was a bit not groundbreaking because all he was doing was telling his story. He was just doing him, but yet here today, gone tomorrow. And I don't want that to happen. Um, uh, Even if it's just an aspect of being solidarity, I thought it was done well. There was a part that almost fluttered through my emotion too, where in 2005 I was at the Fuse TV VJ search, and I was still very uncomfortable with expressing those things. But I had a meeting with one of the head of programming, and there was a lot of like what potential ideas of what we could have done after the show that I worked on ended. Anyways, I guess I didn't sell myself strong enough, but there was a part of me that always wanted to sell myself. And by the way, the executive was family, so I always wanted to sell myself in a way um where I could have given a nod to fam and made it like, I'm struggling with this. Let's keep the show going and let's move me to New York City because that's where the show was that I was just visiting for. And let's do something. I was like there, but like sometimes you need your own tenacity, but sometimes you need somebody else to kind of pull it out of you. And unfortunately, at that time, I hadn't really gotten there yet. I was around 25 years old. And again, I said it took a couple more years for me to really get centered and understand what time it is now. Totally cool with everything. But what I thought of it was hearing the way Jerrod did that, it kind of brought me to a place where I was like, almost saying subconsciously or even consciously, if I book this next show on Fuse TV, I can go a little further with what I'm struggling with. And we could talk about all the other stuff too, but like this thing that has been so hard, and we could kind of do this whole Ronnie's new to New York, fish out of water. Let's experience a lot of different things and then go hit the West Village. And I had it in my head of how like I was gonna be able to do it by way of the art that restricted me, kind of what I'm saying with Jerrod. And I don't know if he had that problem, but the art that restricted him, that made him try to get into, and I have no clue if this is how he feels, but made him have to get into certain, like a box in order to succeed, in order to write comedy that's across mass appeal, but yet he's struggling and burning up inside. I had that in me where I was trying to find a way to get it out within that same art. So the art that fucked you over, I wanted to kind of put it into the work. And I think, that's what made this special so good. He put it into the work. He put all the bullshit of this, and sometimes these days, like I say, you get excited about a special like this, and people are like, "It ain't a big deal. Everyone's open now. Everyone's comfortable. Oh, you think you're special because you're." It's still a big deal. is still a big deal. It's still a big deal. And he put it in the work and he did it well. That wraps up my particular commentary on this. I'll be doing a bunch of other episodes. And of course, wherever that journey is with Carmichael, we will, of course, follow. I did want to make a mention. If you want to support the channel, it's patreon.com/randomlyRJ Jr. Patreon.com/randomlyRJ Jr. That is where even more content goes up behind the paywall. As it is, I get very vulnerable and honest on this particular platform, and I have nearly 20 years of radio experience. You know, peaks and valleys, man. It is a challenge and it's a journey, but I like where I'm at. But if you want to support, make sure you hit that up. And the hashtag is randomly with Ronnie Jr. So go support that as well. That wraps up this episode. And to Jerrod I always say the name wrong. Jerrod Carmichael, who had a very funny joke. Uptown, baby. I wish him all the best because it was done in a way that really reflected to a lot of experiences that so many of us know. And it was done in his story, but it also made me feel reflective of aspects of my story. Check it out. It's Rathaniel on HBO Max. I hope you enjoy the episode. It is time to go.